Somebody broke into my home. Somebody broke into my home and shot my wife.
Are they still in there?
I don't know.
Okay, what's the address?
Tipp City, Ohio. Please hurry. Please hurry.
What are you seeing?
My wife she's got 2 shots to her head. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God. Sir, please.
It's 2:31 in the morning. A man picks up his phone and dials 911. His voice is shaking. He's screaming his wife's name. He's telling the dispatcher that someone broke into their home, that someone shot her, that there's blood everywhere. He sounds like a man whose entire world just collapsed in an instant. But here's what the police found when they walked through that front door. A refrigerator, pushed directly in front of the very door the intruder was supposed to have used to get inside. Sit with that for a second, because that detail right there, that one quiet, immovable object, is what unraveled everything. This is the story of Ashley Flynn, a woman of deep faith, a mother of 2 little girls, a volleyball coach who poured herself into her students, a wife of 16 years who went to sleep one night in Tipp City, Ohio, and never woke up, and the man sitting across from her pillow, the man who called himself her husband, her pastor, her protector, was allegedly the last person she ever saw. Welcome to Mystora crimes, where secrets surface and justice demands to be heard. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. Cases like Ashley's, real people, real families, real daughters who wake up one day without their mother, they deserve to be told. They deserve witnesses. If you believe these stories matter, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Mystora Crimes and click that bell so you never miss a case. It costs you nothing. But for the families behind these stories, knowing that someone out there is paying attention, that means everything. Now, let's go back to Tipp City. Ashley Flynn was 37 years old. By every account from everyone who knew her, she was the kind of woman who made a room feel warmer just by walking into it. She was a substitute teacher. She coached 7th grade volleyball at Tippecanoe Middle School. She taught for LifeWise Academy, a nonprofit that brought Bible-based education into public schools. She was raising 2 young daughters. She was deeply, genuinely committed to her faith, not in a performative way, but in the way that showed up in how she treated people every single day. Her community loved her. Her students loved her. Her family described her as someone who brought endless light into the world. She had been married to Caleb Flynn for 16 years. They were a church couple, a worship couple, the kind of family that stood up front on Sunday mornings and led the congregation in praise. Caleb was a music pastor. He had even appeared on American Idol back in 2013, standing in front of the cameras and saying, "I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. I love her."
I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. Just, I love her.
16 years, 2 daughters, a life built entirely around faith, community, and each other. So how does a story like that end with 2 gunshots in the dark? To understand what happened on that Monday morning in February 2026, you have to understand the world these 2 people lived in, because it matters. It matters a lot. Caleb and Ashley Flynn were not just churchgoers. They were leaders. Caleb served as a worship director, first at Free Chapel Church in Spartanburg, South Carolina, then at Christian Life Center in Dayton, Ohio. These are not small roles. A worship leader stands at the front of the congregation every single week. They set the spiritual tone. They are seen. They are trusted. They are, in many ways, held to a higher standard than the average person in the pews. That kind of position comes with enormous social weight. And in tight-knit religious communities, reputation isn't just about how people see you. It's about who you are. Your marriage, your family, your faithfulness, all of it is on display. All of it is part of the identity. Now here's where the case starts to develop its first layer of darkness. Investigators, as part of their deep dive into Caleb's phone records and communications, reportedly uncovered something that had been carefully buried. According to alleged leaked court documents that circulated after his arrest, there was what authorities described as heavy communication on his phone in the hours leading up to Ashley's death. Not casual texts, not a late-night scroll. Heavy communication. Communication that intensified right before the crime. And at 12:42 in the morning, less than 2 hours before Ashley was shot twice in the head while she slept, Caleb allegedly sent a message to an unidentified woman. The message allegedly read, "It's almost done. Let that sink in. It's almost done." Not, "I can't sleep." Not, "I'm thinking about you." 3 words that, in context, carry a weight that is almost unbearable to process. Because if those documents are accurate, that message wasn't just a text. It was allegedly a countdown. Ashley Flynn was still alive when those words were sent. She was asleep in the next room. And if investigators are right, her husband was already moving toward what he was about to do. Now, and I want to be clear here, these details come from alleged leaked documents and have not all been officially confirmed in open court. But the fact that investigators noted this communication pattern as part of their probable cause to arrest him tells us they believe these messages are significant. So who was he texting? Social media communities dedicated to following Ashley's case moved quickly. A name began to surface. Alega Botner, 23 years old, a worship leader herself, at the same church, Christian Life Center. She and Caleb allegedly knew each other because they shared the stage. They sang together. They led worship together. Every Sunday, in front of congregation, side by side. According to the theory spreading across these forums, the affair had allegedly been going on for months. And here's the question that keeps circling back. Did Ashley know? There's a text that has been mentioned in connection with Ashley Flynn. A text allegedly sent by Ashley herself, in which she reportedly wrote, "I can't anymore." 3 words from him, 3 words from her. And between those 2 messages, an entire marriage and a life in collapse. Now, this message from Ashley has not been officially confirmed either. But if it existed, it raises something important about the psychology of what may have been unfolding inside the household in the weeks or days before February 16th. Was Ashley aware of the affair? Was she emotionally at a breaking point? Was she considering leaving? Because here is where the behavioral analysis becomes critical. In cases where a spouse commits intimate partner homicide, one of the most consistent psychological patterns researchers have identified is what's known as a trapped perception. The perpetrator, almost always the one holding more social power or having more to lose publicly, begins to see divorce or exposure not as an embarrassing inconvenience, but as a total annihilation of identity, especially in communities where reputation is everything. Think about what Caleb Flynn had to lose. Not just a marriage, not just a family. His entire public identity was wrapped up in being a faithful Christian husband and worship leader. The moment Ashley walked out that door, or the moment she told someone about the affair, his standing in the church, his role, his image, everything he had built a sense of self around would have been gone. For some people, that calculus becomes monstrous. Instead of facing humiliation and rebuilding, something in them decides that elimination is the cleaner solution. It's a psychology that criminologists have studied across hundreds of cases. The person who can't tolerate being seen for who they truly are. And this is what allegedly unfolded in a quiet neighborhood in Tipp City, while 2 little girls slept just down the hall from where their mother was shot. Caleb's plan, if investigators are correct, was not spontaneous. The alleged text at 12:42 a.m. suggests premeditation. The staged crime scene suggests planning. The refrigerator push against the door suggests that he thought carefully about how this would look from the outside. He allegedly created a narrative in his head before the gun was ever fired. Someone broke in. He was a victim. His wife was tragically taken. He would grieve publicly, be comforted by the very church community that might otherwise have judged him, and quietly build a new life. What he did not account for was a refrigerator. Sometimes the thing that brings down a carefully constructed lie is the most ordinary object in the world. Not digital forensics. Not a witness. A refrigerator in front of a door. Because you cannot stage a break-in through a door that cannot be opened from the outside. And you cannot explain away the physical impossibility of your own story when detectives are standing right there looking at it. The crime scene began to tell a very different story from the one Caleb had prepared. When police arrived at Cunningham Court in the early hours of February 16th, they found Ashley in the master bedroom. She had been shot twice in the head. She was in bed. The way a person is when they are completely unaware of what is coming, when they trust that the person beside them could never. 2 9mm shell casings were on the floor near the foot of the bed. Caleb's handgun was reportedly kept in the center console of a 2024 Ford pickup truck parked in the garage. That console was found open. So here's the picture that investigators began to reconstruct. The gun was retrieved from the truck in the garage. Ashley was in bed, asleep. The shooting happened, and then the staging began. The garage door was open from the inside. The refrigerator, which would have been blocking that side entrance, was moved. And then at 2:31 a.m., Caleb Flynn called 911 and began performing what may be one of the most calculated emotional displays in this case. The 911 call lasted nearly 8 minutes. He was screaming Ashley's name. He was sobbing. He was saying, "Oh my God," repeatedly. He told the dispatcher his wife had 2 shots to her head, that there was blood everywhere, that he didn't know if the intruder was still inside because the house was pitch black. He said he had been with the children when it happened. And here is where the psychology becomes chilling in a different way. Because if he did this, if he planned this, if he sent that text at 12:42 saying, "It's almost done," and then walked into that bedroom, then what we hear on that 911 call is not grief. It is performance. Every sob, every scream of her name, every "Ashley, baby, please," is a man narrating a story he wrote before she ever died. That is one of the most disturbing realities of premeditated intimate partner homicide. The performance of grief can be nearly indistinguishable from the real thing because the person performing it has had time to rehearse. They have already lived this moment in their mind before it happened. Investigators, to their credit, did not rush. Tipp City Police Chief Greg Atkins was very specific about this after the arrest. He pushed back against the defense attorney's claim that this was a rush to judgment. He said the investigation progressed at a pace dictated by a thorough and deliberate investigative process. They spent 3 days building their case before making an arrest. 3 days during which Caleb Flynn was staying with Ashley's own family, her parents, her relatives, the people who loved her most, who were grieving her, who were hosting the man who allegedly took her from them, and who had no idea. When that arrest came on February 19th, it didn't just devastate a community. It shattered one. The fallout from Caleb Flynn's arrest reached far beyond the Flynn household. It rippled straight into the heart of Christian Life Center, the church where both he and the woman he allegedly had an affair with served as worship leaders. The church had been planning a public celebration of life for Ashley, a space for the community to come together and grieve one of their own. That service was canceled. The statement that came from the church said simply that out of respect to all families involved, there would be no public service, only a private, invite-only gathering, all families involved. That phrase was noticed. In the middle of a murder investigation, a church was already trying to navigate what it meant that 2 of its worship leaders had allegedly been conducting a secret affair, and that one of their beloved members was now dead because of it. Pastor Jordan Hansen released a public statement urging the congregation toward prayer and away from gossip. He wrote that 2 young daughters had lost their mother, that a family was devastated, and that now was the time to pray and guard against speculation. The community, understandably, was not quiet. Online forums and social media groups dedicated to Ashley's case exploded with discussion. People who had attended Christian Life Center spoke about seeing Caleb and Alega on stage together, about the warmth between them that perhaps had seemed, in hindsight, like something more, about the fact that Ashley had seemed, to some, like she had been struggling, that the phrase, "I can't anymore," allegedly attributed to her felt familiar to people who had been paying attention. This is one of the cruelest dimensions of cases like this one. When someone is being betrayed by the person closest to them, they often don't advertise it. They carry it. They absorb it. They smile on Sunday mornings and coach volleyball on weekday afternoons and pour themselves into their children and their faith, and they try to hold it together. Because in communities built around performance of virtue, admitting that your marriage is falling apart can feel like a failure of your own faith. Ashley, by every account, was a woman who showed up fully for everyone around her, her students, her daughters, her church, her community. And if she was silently unraveling at home, if she had sent a message saying she couldn't do it anymore. She was doing what so many women in her position do. She was trying to survive it privately, hoping something would change, not yet knowing that the person she was trying to survive was already planning the ending. Caleb appeared at his video arraignment on February 20th. He pleaded not guilty. He told the judge he was not a risk. He said he just wanted to take care of his daughters.
Is a murder charge, is a count felony of the first degree. Count 2 is 2 and 3 are both felonious assault charges, second degree felonies. Count 4 is tampering with evidence, a third degree felony, and that's count 4. Count 5 is tampering with evidence, a third degree felony. Mr. Falker?
Your Honor, Mr. Flynn would tender pleas of not guilty and would ask for this matter to be scheduled for a preliminary hearing. Mr. Flynn is residing in Patrol and has no other charges pending against him and has no criminal history. We would ask the court to establish reasonable bonds.
Mr. Flynn, we're going to set your case for a preliminary hearing for next week on February 26th at 1 p.m. You do have the right to have an attorney to represent you. If you cannot afford one, you can apply to the public defender's office and they'll determine if you're eligible for a court-appointed.
I'm so sorry you cut out there.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the court with respect to bond in this case?
I don't really understand that. So
okay,
no, sir.
So the court has to establish a bond, sir, to ensure your appearance, okay? So the court will establish a bond and you have the right to tell me, hey, I'm not a flight risk, I am a flight risk, or anything of that nature. Is there anything you would want to tell me about that?
Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk. I
understand. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, the court is going to order a $2 million blanket bond in this case, covering all of your charges. Should you post bond in this case, the court will order that you be on pretrial services electronically monitored house arrest. Furthermore, the court will order that you will have no contact whatsoever, directly or indirectly through a third party, with. You are not permitted to speak to them in any way, shape, or form. That includes electronic communications. You are not allowed to communicate through family members whatsoever. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned.
His attorney called the arrest rushed and raised a specter of wrongful conviction. The 2 daughters, he said, he wanted to take care were placed in the care of family. They will grow up knowing their father is accused of murdering their mother. There is no version of their future that is not shaped by what allegedly happened in that bedroom on February 16th. There is something I want you to sit with as we close out this case. And it's not just about Caleb Flynn. It's about something much broader and much harder to look at directly. Caleb Flynn stood on a stage every Sunday and led people in worship. He pointed people toward a God of truth and light and faithfulness. And if investigators are correct, he was simultaneously living a double life that culminated in the murder of his wife in her sleep while their children were 20 feet away. This is not just hypocrisy. This is a particular kind of psychological architecture that researchers who study intimate partner homicide have written about extensively: the ability to compartmentalize, to maintain a public self that is completely divorced from a private self, to stand in front of hundreds of people and project love and faith and devotion while allegedly harboring something completely opposite underneath. And the thing that allegedly pushed him over the edge was not a dramatic fight, not a public exposure, not some catastrophic event. It was, according to this theory, the fear of one, the possibility that Ashley might leave, that the affair might surface, that the carefully constructed image would crack. In cases of this nature, the violence is almost never about hatred of the victim. It is about control of the narrative. The victim, in the perpetrator's distorted psychology, is not a person to be mourned. They are a variable to be eliminated before they can become a threat to the story. Ashley Flynn was not a threat. She was a woman trying to figure out how to survive a betrayal. She was a mother putting her daughters to bed every night. She was a coach, a teacher, a friend. She had no idea that in her husband's mind, she had allegedly already been reduced to something that needed to be done. That text, "It's almost done," if it is real, and investigators apparently believe it is significant enough to form part of their case. Then in those 3 words, we see the full collapse of any humanity toward her. She was already erased in his mind before the gun was ever fired. Now here's what I want to ask you, because I genuinely want to hear your thoughts on this. Why do you think people in positions of spiritual or moral authority are sometimes capable of this kind of violence? Is it the pressure of maintaining a perfect image that creates this dangerous double life? Or do you think the performance of goodness can actually become a cover, a way to operate without scrutiny for so long that the internal guardrails simply disappear? And what about the community? The people who sat in those pews every Sunday and watched these 2 people sing together? At what point does a church community have a responsibility to see beyond the performance? Ashley's preliminary hearing is underway as of today, February 23rd, 2026. More evidence will come. More details will surface. And Mystora crimes will be right here when they do. If this story moved you, if you believe Ashley Flynn deserves to be remembered and her case deserves to be understood, then subscribe to Mystora Crimes right now. Hit that notification bell. And leave your theory in the comments below. What do you think drove Caleb Flynn to this? And what do you think justice looks like for Ashley and those 2 little girls? We will never stop telling these stories, because every single one of them is a real person who deserve better. And the least we can do is make sure they are not forgotten.